A father sends his disobedient son to a special boarding school, essentially a torture center, where they teach kids to control their aggression. The film, based on real events, begins with the main character, a teenager named Fran, chatting via video call with his best friend and girlfriend. He's drinking beer and smoking in front of the computer. Suddenly, his father, Louis, enters the room. He has to get up early, and the loud noise prevents him from sleeping. The teenager snaps rudely at him to leave, but the father doesn't go. He tries to talk to his son while his friends patiently wait on the call. The next morning, tired and annoyed, Luis goes to work managing his store. Meanwhile, his lazy son entertains himself, skipping school, smoking with friends, listening to music, drinking, and making out with his girlfriend. Later, the father is informed that Fran has long since quit school, and then the hospital calls, asking him to pick up his son. Fran got into a fight. Luis has to drive to the ER, where Miguel's parents, Fran's friend, are waiting, expressing their disapproval, saying Fran is a bad influence on their child. After the checkup, Luis picks up his son. He tries to talk to him on the way home, but in the underground garage, Fran lashes out and tries to leave. Luis catches up, but the teenager yells at him and slaps him, then runs away. That evening, when Luis returns home, his son is gone. He's at a disco partying with friends, dancing, drinking, and using drugs. Alone, the father lights candles on a birthday cake. Fran has turned 17. Worried about not being able to connect with his child, Luis searches online for ways to communicate with teenagers. He comes across an ad for a program called SIMCA, Special Psychological Correction for Aggressive Behavior. Parents of troubled teens share their experiences, how hard it was to communicate before and how easy it became afterward. While watching these videos, Luis loses track of time, and later that night, a high Fran staggers down the hallway. He freezes at his father's slightly open door, but Luis turns off the light to avoid another unpleasant conversation. The next day, Luis attends the SIMCA presentation. An impressive coach delivers an inspiring speech about how discipline can instill real values and determination in spoiled kids, preparing them for successful futures. While Luis listens, Fran hangs out on his phone, drinking. Miguel, pressured by his mother, distances himself from his friend, and the girlfriend hints nothing serious was going on, so no long-term plans should be made. Upset, Fran continues drowning his sorrows. That's when his father finds him that evening. At night, two specially trained people drag the half-naked teenager from his bedroom. He struggles, kicks, screams, and calls for his father. But Luis is already prepared, packing a suitcase, and sees his son off at the boarding school entrance. Fran is thrown into a minivan and driven along a scenic mountain road away from the city. There, he meets father, Oscar, the head instructor. He is displeased that the newcomer is barefoot and half-naked. All students must observe discipline and dress properly. He also dislikes the handcuffs on Fran and orders them removed. Fran interprets this gesture as friendliness and insults the guard. But Oscar immediately restores social hierarchy. He twists the audacious kid's arm, shoves his face against the wall, and recites the rules, including the mandatory respectful silence in the presence of elders. The right to speak is a privilege. Fran's head is shaved. He is issued a uniform and taken to the main group. Children with bloody marks on their chins watch the daily video. They greet the newcomer with a rehearsed chant. When Fran tries to speak to a neighbor, Father Oscar hits pause, and the kids jump up reciting the silence rule. Confused by this discipline, Fran glances around, realizing no one here will tolerate nonsense. The daily schedule includes strictly regulated productive labor for society, like collecting clothespins, as well as group meals in the cafeteria. Fran studies his new peers, trying to memorize the chants. Videos are shown on TV reinforcing acceptable behavior, and among the instructors, Father Nando stands out. Oscar reprimands him for his appearance and chewing gum, bad examples for the students. Teens also meet with a psychologist discussing hidden fears and relationships with parents. Fran admits he misses his father, but is upset that Luis never really showed love, including toward his mother, who left when he was young. The boarding school staff, led by Oscar, discussed the upcoming Freedom Day, a holiday for the students to show what life outside could be like. Nando, new to the program, doesn't know what this is and is teased by others, prompting a dramatic speech. Later, during lunch, Nando takes out his anger on another student, slamming his face into the table while others eat hurriedly, pretending nothing happens. At one point, Nando sprays pepper spray in a student's eyes. The director disapproves. Wealthy parents pay for safety, not mutilation. Oscar manages to smooth things over with a light reprimand, reinforced by a strike to the face. Fran learns the rules quickly but hasn't yet experienced punishments. One night after lights out, he sneaks out and finds the sensory deprivation area, full or partial isolation from the outside world, where even talking is forbidden. In one room, he sees a teen strapped to a stretcher, blindfolded and earmuffed, left alone with his thoughts. Fran removes the mask and headphones. The boy screams for mercy, asking him to kill him. Shocked, Fran runs back, but guards notice the escape. Alarms sound. A chase begins. Fran hides in a corner, and when a guard enters, he attacks him, beating him bloody until backup restrains him. For this act, Father Oscar punishes the entire group. They are laid face down on the floor, chin pressed to the ground. During this, guards intermittently flash lights and play loud music, resembling a Pokemon episode, triggering epileptic fits. After serving the punishment, Fran receives his bloody mark on his chin. Meanwhile, parents gather for their own rehabilitation program led by psychologist Helena. Luis explains he cannot connect with his son. Helena responds that dialogue requires two participants. Not only children must learn obedience, but parents must be involved in their lives. As a successful example, Helena cites Sandra and her parents. The girl completed the program. Adults share how life changed after her return, but the story ends with the girl wetting herself. Her mother leads her away. Returning home, Luis follows Helena's advice and enters his son's room. On the computer, he watches a music clip of Fran fooling around with friends. Among the frames is Luis himself, secretly filmed by his son at work. The video makes the father smile. The next morning, he goes to the boarding school to pick up his son. But Oscar shows him a video of a guard being beaten, convincing him Fran is still not ready to reintegrate into society. While watching another clip, the teenager jokes, overheard by instructors. The group is sent for another punishment, standing for over a day with hands tied and blindfolded for failing to internalize repeated lessons. Only the last standing passes, the rest go to sensory isolation. Those who squat are removed by guards. Meanwhile, parents attend another empathy training. Luis meets Sandra's parents, worried about their daughter's mental health, hoping the sessions will help. The next day, remaining teens are fed, but there is one less portion than the number of prisoners. Failing to agree, they argue, and guards confiscate all food. Near nightfall, Helena films the teens to collect evidence of harsh methods. Nando catches her and brings her to Oscar, but the director sees nothing wrong. All methods are legal. On the third day, Fran is the last standing, returning to the routine. Meanwhile, Luis builds a warm relationship with Sandra's mother. They have lunch together, leading to romantic interest. But while kissing in the parking lot, her daughter watches Helena's torture videos. Overwhelmed by memories, the girl jumps from the roof, in front of her father engrossed in work. Oscar reprimands himself for the leak, tightening rules and the regime. Students are driven hard with exercises, some vomiting in the gym. Nando forces them to clean it with bare hands. He continues beatings with tacit consent from the staff. At one point, Fran rebels, freezing in place and refusing to leave the cafeteria. Oscar orders him to sensory isolation, where he is restrained, blindfolded, and earmuffed. After a while, deprived of external information, the brain produces hallucinations from past memories. Torture ends when Freedom Day arrives. Male and female groups gather in the gym to waltz. Exhausted Fran is brought in, but he watches from a chair, not participating. Students pair up in waltz, but one boy freezes, inspired by Fran's open rebellion. Others follow. Despite Oscar's shouts and hits, the event is disrupted to Fran's satisfaction. Nando even has to restrain the director before anyone is harmed. Parents also participate in similar dances, more like a youth disco. One requirement is a carnival costume. Luis tries one, but Sandra's mother's absence, grieving her daughter, ruins his interest. After the funeral, he meets the woman. She plans to leave far away, so they won't meet again. Luis admits he wants to take his son from the boarding school, and she agrees, given what happened to her daughter's psyche. The next day, Luis arrives at the school. Fran is brought out immediately, not even trying to argue. The teenager silently gets into the car, not even greeting Luis, staring blankly out the window. At home, he meets his girlfriend, asking about her day. He doesn't talk about his experiences at the school, only lamenting the many children left behind. Fran refuses to speak to his father, though he stops being rude. He discards mementos from his room, severing ties to his past self. He refuses gifts from his father and, in his free time, shouts out the window into the rainy emptiness of the city. But one day, standing in the kitchen, he reflexively repeats the school chants, sparking a dialogue. Fran accuses his father of deliberately sending him to sadistic torture. Luis objects, saying he was deceived, then delivers a monologue, confessing how hard it has been to raise him alone after the mother abandoned them, considering both unnecessary. Luis struggles to admit this, while his son exacerbates the situation with accusations. In the next scene, they silently drive to a house. Luis exits to deliver documents. The exact recipient is unclear from the camera angle. After leaving, Fran asks if it was his mother. Instead of answering, Luis walks away in the rain. His son catches up, and they stand together, embracing and hiding tears in the rain. That's it. Subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. Take care.